how close we are to a turnkey totalitarian state, Weimar Republic.
Yes.
Explain.
Well, I guess the point is that totalitarian states have always needed to control their populations, and in order to do that, they have to assemble information about them, like the KGB or the Stasi or the SS and Gestapo could never have dreamt of having the capabilities of monitoring the people that our government currently has and is doing. By, by collecting all that information and data, they can see what they're working on, who they're working with, and they can even read the material and see what they're doing.
And you were saying, Diane, that what we were talking about with the donors, that what they're doing is there's nothing in these guys' background per se that's wrong or illegal. They're just using this information to smear and to pressure, right?
Yes, and that's only a tiny piece of the information that could be collected. Almost everything about you can be collected because they've admitted that all the government agency data is free game. Now business data is free game. They can make businesses turn that over secretly and not even be able to tell their customers that it's been turned over. When you talk about putting all your data in the cloud, they can do it without even asking anybody.
Financial information, everything.
And doing all this in secret.
You are, I mean, I assume we all are, main concern is the Constitution. That's your main, this is, and why is that?
Because a national security state is anathema to our form of government, and something has to give, and what's giving are freedoms and liberties. It's that simple.
What does that mean?
Well, what are you going to have left to defend? You're going to give up all, perfect security means you give up all your liberties? I mean, that's kind of the logical conclusion here.
What does, because Mitt Romney has Michael Hayden. Who wants to talk about Michael Hayden? Michael Hayden's right in this ballpark, is he not?
He's a central character in the history of 9/11. He entered into a pact with the White House to bypass the Constitution.
He presided over one of the largest intelligence failures in the history of the United States and got promoted.
And he's the guy who is a Mitt Romney advisor?
He's the counterintelligence, he's the counterterrorism and intelligence advisor, the chief advisor.
So he's down with this kind of a program, we think.
Yes. Well, Tenet, George Bush, and Dick Cheney were the central figures who started this program.
Is George Bush and Dick Cheney, are they just as bad as Obama? Is Obama worse? Is this a faster road? Is this just the same?
Actually, Obama has significantly expanded the secrecy regime. In fact, I've spoken with some Bush officials, former Bush officials, and they were saying, like, whoa, we never could have gotten away with that during our time in office.
Okay. So do you think that Hayden will move Romney back to the Bush era or even further? Do we have any idea? I mean, I know that's still the wrong direction, but I mean, what I'm trying to ask you is what does this country look like in 2 years from now if we don't get off this course? 5 years from now?
Actually, since we didn't give them any capability to do automated processing and analysis and discovery in large databases, we didn't give them that. So they're still doing things pretty much by hand. So there's a limited amount they could do, even if they had 1,000 or 2 people doing it. They could still only do so much. But
wait a minute, you're telling me that huge warehouse in Utah is still being, it has to be sorted through by hand?
Yes, they interrogate it directly by hand by specific targets. They would throw a target specifically in there, pull data back, and look at that target.
But the more information you have, the more you can ask about individuals. Right. That's the real...
Oh, I believe me, without getting into any details, we have had somebody approach us and say, with GBTV, what you could do? You could ask people to work with, on getting the vote out, and you can use this new algorithm to go out and map who's a conservative, who's a Christian that lives all around you. I said, how the hell do you do that? How do you do that? All the data that's out there legally.
Yes.
with like 90%, 99% accuracy can say this person's most likely a conservative, what kind of conservative they are, and a Christian. That makes it awfully easy to do anything nefarious.
It is extraordinarily seductive to have access to that kind of information in secret. It's just too tempting.
I would also warn that they are working on means and methods of doing automated analysis of these large databases. The latest was the Big Data Initiative that came out of the White House. They're talking about trying to get programs that will go through massive data and figure out things and tell them what is knowledge inside that massive data. So that then puts everybody in jeopardy at one time once that starts.
Who could walk through this?
Kirk can do that, yeah.
Yes. This is an illustration of what an authority can do if they want to know what somebody does. And in this particular example, Glenn, we have a fictitious Bob that we're tracking through a day of activities.
Now, this is legal? No,
well,
this is not legal. Is this what we're doing?
Yes. This is what we're trying to get to. We meaning NSA, the government.
The Constitution is inconvenient here.
Right.
It's important as background to know that there was a recent Supreme Court case in which the Supreme Court ruled that the FBI could not attach a GPS tracking device to an automobile and persistently track someone.
Okay.
But behind this information is essentially the same capability. Let me explain. In this particular instance, Bob turns his computer on at 6:37 in the morning on this particular day, December 12th. When that happens, his computer's allocated an IP address. The IP provider, the services, internet service provider that provides his connectivity has a record of that. And there's a timestamp. And there's a location associated, an address, a person
GPS.
With an address, exactly. Location. At 8:17, Bob makes a cell call to a colleague on the way to work.
GPS again.
Cells have locational information. All right, 8:47, Bob passes through a traffic camera. There's a date and a timestamp and a place where that camera is. 9:08 a.m., Bob's toll transponder is used. That's Easy Pass, Smart Tag. He passes through that on the entrance to the toll road. Again, time, date, location. 9:24, Bob's toll transporter or transponder again is used to calculate his location upon exit.
Okay, so what is if you get all of these things because it sees,
exactly.
You're making a bank deposit, you're purchasing lunch, it's watching you. But what is this in the end? What does this mean to the government? What does this mean? Why is this so valuable?
This is more powerful than if the government were to assign a special agent to track you.
Why?
Because it has insight into what you do at home, where it's hard for an agent to go, at work, inside your computer, what messages you're sending. What are you thinking about something?
Can they track what you're typing? They could track what you're typing?
Yes, if you're interactive, right? If you're typing an email and then you send the email, they get the whole email. But otherwise, if you're interactive with the net, yes, they can get every line that goes across the net.
And are they grabbing all of that stuff now?
My guess is yes, they are. And the reason I say that is because the one compromised San Francisco site that they're using on the web was with AT&T, was the NARIS devices that they were putting in there. That NARIS device will take everything off the fiber lines, everything, and record it, including the interactive chat, the email, everything.
Republicans are just as bad. The House just passed this horrible surveillance bill. What is it that we can do? What is it that, give me one piece of action that people can do or should do right now?
They should start screaming at everybody in Congress and the White House.
About to say what?
To say stop this invasion of our privacy and start to respect the Fourth Amendment of the Constitution.
And the first thing they could do is they could put the protections back on that they took off. There were privacy protections that were deliberately taken off.
But that's what they're saying, that this cybersecurity bill is to protect you, and nobody knows this well enough.
It's really an intrusive surveillance protection act. That's what it is against citizens. There's no need to take the 99% of people, there's no reason to suspicion them and collect all this information. You can actually have both. You don't need to collect on everybody just to ensure that you've got all the data, and you might need it at some point later. But that's part of it. You have an institution who has a hoarding complex. They just want the data.
Right.
They'll figure out what they're going to do with it later. The risk is in secret. If they decide to come after you or target you for whatever reason, politically or otherwise, they can do so.
Kurt?
Glenn, it's possible technically, eminently possible, to protect the identities of Americans and still find bad guys. You give up nothing. So the question is, why aren't those protections built into the legislation that Congress has been passing?
All right, could I ask you guys a favor? Could you, all four of you or one of you, could I ask you to write an essay or a couple of essays for The Blaze and to take us through this, exactly what the steps, what we should ask for? I have no idea where to even begin. And what to ask for, and what to do, and what to watch for in legislation. Would you be willing to do that?
Absolutely.
For us?
Absolutely.
Okay. I thank you for your courage, for standing up. I thank you for the loss of what you could have done, had you played ball, and the courage to stand and continue to stand. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. Back in a minute.